that moves on to our white cards. So, once again, we're starting here with our lowest mana cost here. Arkhans Glory is our first white card. Single white mana for an instant. Oh my goodness. An hour and a half in, we finally get our first instance of bargain. All right, I'm sure most of you have either looked it up or pieced it together or seen this before, but what bargain says, and it's on all types of cards. Oh, maybe just spell instants and sorceries. Yeah. It says, you may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this spell. And if you do that, you get an additional effect. So for this one, Arkhans Glory, single white mana, instant, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If this spell was bargained, that creature also gains flying and lifelink until end of turn.
Yeah, so there are bargain on creatures too.
Right, yeah. Sorry, yeah, I misspoke.
Yeah. But bargain, we see it for the first time, and it's going to do different things. Mm-hmm. There's quite a bit of different things that bargain's going to give you. But keep in mind, my old dislike of cards like Power Stone Fracture, you're in general not going to want to sacrifice something, with the exception of a few specific cards they have in this set that really want you to sacrifice them.
Yeah, and most of these cards, like the commons and a good number of the uncommons, aren't going to be so powerful when you bargain them that it's just like, oh, you're happy sacrificing something every time. Like, I do think people underrate how bad it is to just sacrifice something, even if it's not, like, even if your board is pretty wide and you've got all these, like, trinkety things going on, it's still a cost, right? And there's going to be a lot of board states that aren't like that, where you've got a lot of material, rectangles on the battlefield. So the nice thing about this one is it's a game-ending spell a lot of the time, right? You're just going to be like, jump your thing. I don't care that I sacked, my little my token. It doesn't matter that much. Rolls, of course, are a big thing you can sacrifice with bargain, right? Because they are enchantments and tokens. So you don't mind. You're not spending a full card putting those rolls in the battlefield. Of course, you've got your food tokens and stuff like that too. So there are things that get you a card's worth of value back when you sacrifice them or when they enter that you can sacrifice. But just, you have to have those for your bargain cards to be great. Otherwise, you're going to be in too many spots too often that you're like, I don't really want to sack anything here.
Yeah, like in general, I don't want to sack my rolls. I don't want to sack my rats. I certainly don't want to sack my knights or anything bigger.
Yep.
I don't want to sack my ginger brutes, right? Like all these pieces of cardboard. This one, you're gonna know when it's gonna be worth it. Like if you're sacrificing your ginger brute is gonna give you lethal, you're gonna do it.
Right.
But you do need to evaluate these cards, I think, as if they don't have bargain, with just a very, very, very tiny upside. Mm-hmm. With the exception being, and we're going to have to mention this over and over again for bargain, so maybe we'll just get it out of the way now, that there are, as I said, a few cards that really want you to sacrifice them. Either cards that sacrifice basically for free and do something, or specifically, there is a card called Hatching Plans in the bonus sheet.
Yeah.
It is a 1 and a blue enchantment that does nothing unless you sacrifice it, and when it goes to the graveyard, you draw 3 cards. So if you have a couple Hatching Plans, you're probably going to play any number of bargain cards for that text. But I think we can avoid adding that caveat to every single bargain card from here forward and just evaluate it as if not every deck has a bunch of Hatching Plans they want to sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things too, of course, is you're evaluating these bargain cards on what do they just do when you don't sacrifice them a lot of the time. Right? That's 75% of the card, I would say, for most of them. That's mostly what you're looking to get out of the deal. And single mana +2/+2, that's always a playable combat trick. And I like flying and lifelink. That's really good stat abilities for your card like this. It's not going to be, well, I would say this is going to be one of the better combat tricks in the set. Would you say?
So I'm actually more down on combat tricks in general in this set,
yes,
I think.
I agree. Okay.
Partly because
I want to see where you're going with this, but I have somewhere to go with it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have 2 reasons for saying that.
Okay.
The first is that it's better to have a combat trick that's stapled onto as an adventure, because you just have the extra card that you get to cast as the adventure side. But also, there's, I think, going to be very small boards.
Right.
And it's not like you're going to have something that you really need to protect as much, is my guess. That's where I was going with this. Where were you going to go with this?
I was actually going to go the opposite. I was going to say... So, you're saying small... When you say small boards, do you mean your creatures are small? And
yeah, I don't... like, your boards can be wide, but I mean small creatures.
Small creatures, right. I was going to say that with all the material, and this is getting a little bit, complex, and forgive me if not everybody's familiar with this terminology, but Sam Black's big game, small game, which basically just boils down to a big game is where both players have a lot of permanence on the battlefield, have a lot of cards and access to a lot of resources. A small game is where players are choked on resources. Think like a black attrition plan. The black decks are really looking to, just in general in any format, looking to grind you out, looking to make sure you don't have cards in hand, your creatures are dead. Combat tricks perform better in small games because your opponents will be forced to block more often rather than just take the damage. They're going to be in tight combat situations. They're going to be like, okay, well, I'm playing this game where every +1/+1 matters. Like in these small games, little stat boosts do tend to matter. And so I think that combat tricks get better in those small games, which we don't think. This is my thought. I don't think this format's going to lend itself to small games very often because, like we mentioned, there's just a lot of material lying around the battlefield, right? So the impact of Let me put it in a much more straightforward way. The impact of a combat trick in a small game format like Phyrexia All Will Be One was huge. You felt like when you cast a combat trick, you're like, wow, that was your opponent did. That's a huge blowout. In a set like March of the Machine, where it's a bit more of a big game format, you didn't care as much about the combat tricks. So that's my just really like cursory glance on this. We've gone really deep on Arkhans Glory specifically, but once again, this is just talking about the mechanic. Where do we want to stay for, or what grade are we going to get for Arkhans Glory?
Still a decent trick. It's somewhere between like C- and C for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll go with a C, I guess.
Right. I was going to give it a C too. And I think one more way to frame the mechanics in the set, just bargain and adventures. Adventures are your value mechanic. They're your, I'm getting the most out of my card. Bargain is your tempo mechanic. I'm getting a big effect, but I'm going down a resource, right? It's like, kind of like a bounce spell compared to a clunky removal spell. You should think of bargain as giving you a big boost of mana. You're basically getting more than you should from your 1 mana out of this card or your whatever mana from other cards. So the thing you're sacrificing is almost like it's like giving you a few mana or something like that, right? That's kind of a way to frame it. Anyways, C for Arkhans Glory. Let's move on to our next card here. And we've got Break the Spell. Single white mana for an instant. Destroy target enchantment. If a permanent you controlled or a token was destroyed this way, draw a card.
Yeah, so the token referring to opponent's rolls. If they have a roll and you want to destroy it, you can draw a card.
Yeah.
Which might seem like, oh, it's going to be the whole bonus sheet is all enchantments and there's a couple enchantments here. It might seem like card is going to be pretty good. Like if you can kill something and draw a card for 1 mana, that's going to be pretty exciting. But I'm not very high on this card. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not either. I was thinking about this card specifically actually right before we recorded, and I was like, is this going to be one of those cards that turns out to be a little bit better than we expect? Or is it going to be like one of those cards that looks like it's going to be better than we expected and actually turns out to be not that good? And I just can't imagine a situation where I'm thrilled to have this card in my deck. Or on the, obviously when your opponent has some bomb enchantment, sure. But I think most of the time, like the danger with this card is not about, when you find, can you find a target or can you find a spot in the game where it's doing something? The danger is that some of the time it's not going to do that. Sometimes it's going to be stuck in your hand doing nothing, or, the opportunity cost of cycling this, it's going to happen most of the time. You're going to be able to kill an aura, kill a roll, you're going to get your card back. But, have you really accomplished anything that much by putting this card in your deck and drafting it and doing that? It's a little thing. I just think the downside of the times you don't have all that stuff going on kind of outweigh it. So, I'm out on this as a main deck card right now, but this is certainly one I could come back around on and say, hey, this actually has enough stuff going for it. It does have enough impact on the game. It's one of those small things that you don't really you can't really read the card without playing the format and being like, oh, I know how this is going to play. It's more like, okay, I played the format a bunch and here's how things play out. This card makes it in my deck a little bit more often than I might thought. I'm going to give it a sideboard for now, but we'll see.
Okay, I was going to go D+ on it.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess Hatching Plans. Yeah, you're right. Actually, D+ is more of an appropriate grade because you can main deck it. But yeah, Hatching Plans, the 2-mana enchantment you were just talking about to draw 3 cards. That is a nice little combo. Yeah,
but it's a card you can't play it turn 1. You don't really want it in your opening hand. Sometimes when you top deck it, it won't even have a target. So it's not going to be that good.
Right. I think this is just one of those kind of cards that it's very easy to feel smart because you're like, oh, I get it. I get what this is doing. You can just cycle it on an aura on a roll, and it's like, sure. It doesn't, but you're not accomplishing that much. Next up, what do we have?
We have Slumbering Keep Guard. Single white for a 1/1 human knight. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. And has an ability for 2 and a white to get +1/+1 until end of turn for each enchantment you control.
This is a cool little one drop. I imagine you're going to be scrying a decent amount with this thing. Like, I think this is going to get you some real card selection if you play it on turn 1 throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, there's some tension with this because a lot of times when you're playing enchantments and have them lying around, usually you're going to want to bargain them away, and this kind of wants you to keep them around. And then even in like white black, you want your enchantments to go to their graveyard, but this kind of wants you to again not have them go to the graveyard.
Yep.
But it's got a lot of value, and I talked about the 1-drops being strong in this set, and I think this is another example of a good card, but another ping target as well.
Yeah, definitely. You could have your mana up and save it from -1 effect, but you're gonna get caught with your pants down eventually. I think this card is quite strong. I think that this is the ability is going to make it so that your opponent's not going to want to block you very often. And yes, you're only attacking for 1 damage a turn, but 1 damage per turn on your threat of activation 1-drop is not that bad, especially one that's going to be giving you some card selection. So I like Slumbering Keep Guard. I'd give it a C+.
Yeah, C+ on the assumption that you're playing a bunch of enchantments.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, we've got Armory Mice. This is 1 and a white for a 3/1. It's a mouse. It's got Celebration and its Celebration effect, and I'll read that one more time. It says, the Armory Mouse gets +0/+2, and Celebration is as long as 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn, like it is for all of them. So if you meet the Celebration requirement, it's a 2-mana 3/3 on attacks.
Yeah, so this one's not a beginning of combat trigger, so you can either do it mid-combat or do it on your opponent's turn if you're able to get 2 permanents into play.
Yep.
And there are a couple of cards that will let you do that, so it's not irrelevant.
I think this is a solid card. Like, you're gonna be fine with it. Your C level card you're gonna put in your deck. Like 2-mana 3/1 is fine when it has a little bit of upside generally, and the upside of actually attacking for 3 and getting in a clean hit. That's even if you do that once. That's pretty good on your 2-mana play. Like, think about it that way. If your 2-mana play can get in for 1 hit and then maybe trade up, that's fine. You're happy with that. So I would just give a C to Armory Mouse. Or Armory Mice. There's 3 of them. Not quite blind yet. Maybe that comes later in the story. Next up, we've got Cooped Up. 1 and a white for an aura, that common. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. And it's got an ability. 2 and a white, exile the enchanted creature. So it's just pacifism, but you can pay 3 mana to exile the creature for good.
Yeah, and if you have an instant speed bargain card, you can activate the exile and then respond by bargaining it away. So
yeah.
A little way to get some value.
I like it. Yeah, so, I think generally these 2 mana, like a pacifism that is actually 2 mana and has some amount of upside, tends to play pretty well in your aggressive decks, right? You do want to be... We've had a lot of back and forth roller coastering on these types of cards in the past little while, these aura-based enchantment spells, and I've kind of developed this like complex-ish list of heuristics, and one of the complexities is these auras. The aura-based removal spells are totally passable if they're 2 mana in your aggressive decks, because the danger, of course, with a lot of these are you play them, your opponent does something to it, sacks the creature, blinks the creature, bounces the creature. If you're playing an aggressive deck, your opponent doesn't have that much time to do that, right? So I'm pretty fine to play this card, and even in your slower decks, it's that ability really does make up for a lot of the danger this card has.
Yeah, like worst case, this is 3 white exile a creature.
Yes, I think so too, and that's a great way to frame it, and also triggers your enchantments going to the graveyard thing, right? So all that black-white synergy stuff. So what do you want to give Cooped Up?
I still think I'm just gonna go C.
Yeah, I was gonna give a C too. All that in just a C. All right, what's up next?
Next, we have Frostbridge Guard, 1 and a white for a 2/2. It has 2 and a white, tap it to tap target creature.
So very expensive tapping ability. You can't just be doing that every turn. Expensive. This is I come down early and then eventually I tap your stuff, right? And as I've come down early, I'm just a 2-mana 2/2.
Yeah, it's not a very good defensive card because you don't want to leave that up on defense. It's supposed to be a blue-white card probably because it can tap things and potentially draw you cards with the blue-white gold card.
Sure.
But I don't really see it. I'm not very excited about this thing.
Yeah.
It's just too expensive.
Yeah, it's just too vanilla on the attacking side, too expensive on the tapper side. So I'm pretty out on this card. I just give it a D.
A D. I was gonna go D plus.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. D plus for a bear with upside. Okay, this one. Here's one of the bangers. Hopeful Vigil. 1 and a white for an enchantment. When Hopeful Vigil enters the battlefield, you make a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. When Hopeful Vigil is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you scry 2, and you can pay 3 mana, 2 and a white, sacrifice the Vigil. Doesn't do anything, it just goes to the graveyard to trigger the scry.
Yeah, this is like the gluiest glue card of all glues. It does everything. It just does everything.
It does everything at a good rate too. Like 2 mana, 2/2 vigilance. Okay, I'm not enthused about that, but it's fine. It's also a token for what it's worth, and this triggers celebration because it's an enchantment that comes with the 2/2, and of course it's good to sacrifice. And yeah, it does everything in this set. Really, really good 2-drop.
Yeah, it's good to bargain. It's good to celebration. It's good with your 1-drop that wants enchantments in play. It sends an enchantment to the graveyard. It just does everything.
Yeah, it's
great. Like putting a roll on your 2/2 vigilance knight is fantastic too.
I was talking with Jason LTG, who I think might be in the chat right now, and don't sorry if you feel like I'm outing you here a little bit, Jason, but Jason was saying this weekend, I think this might be it was a hot take, of course, but inspiring Overseer's level of good. I don't think it's quite good, and he was kind of like, joking a little bit about that, but like, at the same time, I think a lot of the stuff here is pushed to that degree where I was just talking about how bargaining is really, really strong for you're going up tempo, right? You're not going down you're not going up advantage on card advantage. It's that you're sacrificing something, but you're getting a effect that is worth more than the mana you're paying, right? And so this card not only puts you up on tempo in that regard, but also with the Scry 2 when it goes to the graveyard, it's a little bit of that card advantage, it's a little bit of filtering. So it's kind of got like everything you would want on a card. Everything, like most cards are either good at grinding or good at being good at, on curve tempoing, and this is both. So, I don't know. Oh, my apologies, Jason.
Yeah, there is. I'm not sure there is an inspiring Overseer in this set, but I certainly have this as one of the top commons.
Yes, I think so.
Like, I don't think there's that gap where inspiring Overseer or pre.
No. I agree. And yeah, I just brought that up for a bit of a musings. Not so much that I feel like that's actually locking that in now, but it's a strong card.
Yeah, I have this at maybe just like a B.
Yeah, I was gonna go B plus. I do think it's got like enough of that stuff going on that I'm willing to say this is a little bit higher, but that's maybe on the hot takey side. So I'm gonna stay with my B plus, and if I'm right, I'm right, and Jason too. But if not, then it's merely an awesome card.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. What do we have next?
Next is Kellen's Light Blades. 1 and a white for an instant. It deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, and if it was bargained, destroy that creature instead. So it has bargain, which is implied. I figured we'd just
Yeah, totally. So this is the kind of card that you like a little more than I do. So maybe you talk it up a little if you want to talk it up.
What do you? Whoa! What is this slander of me talking? Whoa! I don't usually like cards like this.
Oh, specifically because it's 3 damage, not just always destroy target tap creature. Because I remember for March in the Machine, you're all about cut short, right? But this is a little bit different than that.
Well, the card was free.
True, it was free.
The biggest problem with cards like this is that it's so easy for opponents to sniff them out. Because if you leave mana up and they go into their combat step, they're just like, okay, alarm bell's going off, and so cards, if it was free, it's much better because you never have to give your opponent the towel. But cards that have mana involved, I have never been a fan of like this.
Yeah, I think so too. These like always look a little bit better, I think, to the lesser experienced player than it actually is. You're like, 2 mana deal 3. The timing restriction on this is just, it's a really big deal. It means, in this set, for example, it means you can't blow out a roll. It means you can't blow out a combat trick, an adventure combat trick. You can, but not if you're casting it not in combat, where maybe you point a burn spell at your opponent's creature, they go to save it. This isn't going to do what a lightning bolt kind of card does. So I think it's even probably a little bit worse in this set too, because another big problem with this card is that you don't want this in your white aggressive decks, and I don't think there's that much in the way of white controlling. I guess black-white might be a little bit controlling, and it is the bargainy color, sacrificing your enchantment. So maybe like a C in the bargain decks. That's maybe a good way to put it.
So what do you? I'm just gonna give this a D. Where do you want to fall?
I'm gonna say D, but has the potential to be good in some decks if you're if you're defensive and have it's kind of funny saying enough bargain fodder, because it's like, well, what is enough? You're always going to want more, right? But like passable, like a C passable card if you're filling all those requirements. But D. I'll put D on the grading sheet too. Next up, we've got Plunge into Winter. This is a familiar card, 1 and a white, instant. Tap up to 1 target creature, scry 1, and draw a card.
Yeah, so it's knots with upside because you don't actually need a target.
Yeah, that's it. It's nuts. It's just nuts now.
No, it's not. It's not nuts. I said it's nuts.
Oh no, but I was just saying it's just nuts now because it's so much better.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think about this card in this set?
I wasn't high on knots in our set review. I don't actually remember what I gave it, but I gave it a pretty low grade. And despite that card overperforming, I'm still not very high on this.
Yeah, I think so too. So there's, the idea of course, it's like, oh, it goes in the blue-white tapping deck. And it's like, well, sure, it's a filler card there, but it's still not exciting there. The thing about Hithling Knots that we really liked, among other things, is that it's a spell that draws you into other spells and finds other spells for your blue-red synergies, right? You really want that in your blue-red deck. It's a spell that you cast, triggers your spell things, gets you more spells. Not quite doing the same thing here, where it's like, okay, maybe you're tapping something and drawing a card and drawing you to more tapping stuff for your blue-white deck, but it's kind of, it's slightly different.
You could also tap opponents' ring bearers, which was big.
Yes, that's true.
So this, I'm going to say D+.
Yeah, I'm on D+ as well. You could put this in your deck and it wouldn't be terrible. So
yeah, the problem with cards like this is you do it and you tap their card and then they play another creature and then next turn you can't tap both of them, so you're falling further and further behind.
Yeah, not a super exciting card. So I'm good with D+ here.
Great.
What's next?
Next is Return Triumphant. 1 white for a sorcery. Return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, and create a young hero role token attached to it. Which just a reminder for that one is the one when that creature attacks, if it has 3 toughness or less, it gets a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, so recommission, but a little bit different. I think mostly better. I think like it's not strictly better because a +1/+1 counter, you're not guaranteed it, but all you need is an attack, and it's going to attack as a +1/+1 counter most of the time. I don't think there's any things that in this set you can bring back for 3 mana or less that aren't going to get the buff from the roll. So what did we like about recommission, or did we like recommission by the end of that set? Do we think this card's gonna be solid here?
I'm actually gonna try and trap you and ask you to lock in a grade before I say anything. Grade.
Okay. So I have done a little bit of diving on this card, and you might have done a little bit more diving than I have on it. But I'm gonna say that this is a C+. That's what I'm gonna give it.
C+?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm way lower on this card.
Okay, oh, let's hear it.
So Recommission in Brothers War, first of all, it hit artifacts, which is just a minor, like you didn't often target an artifact, but that mattered.
Yeah.
But you also had a ton of mill, and you had Scrapwork Mutt, and you just had like tons of stuff putting cards in the graveyard, and you had a 3/3 for 4 that had no downside if you recommissioned it in white. So you had a ton of, like in white specifically, you had Ambush Paratrooper, you had the Mill 3 get a Plains or a CMC 3 or less, and you had the 4/4 that were all just great targets at common.
Yep.
And this thing, I just don't think you're getting those options. Like, you'd basically just have to have a creature and have it trade off, and at that point, you'd rather just have a trick to save your creature instead of just bringing it back again with the Young Hero roll. And then by the time you get the Young Hero roll and this has died and come back, it's not that likely that your creature has an attack to start growing, because it's going to be turn 4, turn 5, turn 6. There's no guarantee that your 2-drop or 3-drop with a Young Hero roll can attack and start getting counters on it.
Yeah, I think your big picture analysis there is right, or I agree with it at least. My small picture analysis on it, and this is where you did more research on this card than I did, so pat yourself on the back. I was just thinking that it's a celebration enabler, right? It gives you 2 permanents for 2 mana. That's like kind of interesting to me, but I think you're more right than I am from this one. And chat's like you set me up to be trapped here, and chat's like, boo, Alex, bad grade. I agree with Mark. So I guess I have activated your trap card here. So I'm gonna trust you on this one because I haven't given that much thought to this card. I just was kind of like, oh hey, it's recommission different, but yeah, I'll join you totally.
Are you going to join me regardless of what I say next? That's a lot of trust.
Oh yeah, I mean I trust you, Mark, but what do you want to say next?
I was going to give it a full letter grade lore. I was going to go D+.
Yeah, that's totally fine. No, I think that's totally fine. You put me on the spot, and I failed the test. We've got Unassuming Sage next. 1 and a white for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you can pay 2. If you do, you create a sorcerer role token attached to it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you can't move it to anything else. Like, it has to be on this one.
Yeah.
And I think the first time we come across these, we should just do a recap of what each role is once.
Agree.
So sorcerer role being the one that +1/+1, and when it attacks, you scry 1. But you're not like you're kind of getting a split card where both cards are bad, right? You're getting a 2 for 2 for 2, or you're getting a 3 for 4,
right?
With scry 1, and I'm not that high on this card.
Yeah, this is like a low tier synergy card if you care about the stuff that it's doing. If you care about celebration, if you care about auras, but it's a card that you're gonna get close to that last pick. I imagine this is just not a. Unassuming is a little misleading here. I think it is. It's quite clear how good this card is. So I'm gonna give this a D.
A D?
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue my train of D pluses.
Yeah,
and just
that's totally fine. What do we have next?
Next is Moment of Valor. 2 and a white for an instant. You can choose one. Either untap target creature, it gets +1/+0 and indestructible, or destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Yeah,
so this is, I think, a lot of people, myself included, reading this card at first are like, oh, it's just one of these kind of cards, or it's like, modal, destroy a big thing and little small effect. But we've had effects like that have been quite good in the past. Destroy Evil from DMU, obviously that was 2 mana, not 3. But the untapped target creature, it gets +1 indestructible mode. That's kind of nice. I mean, it's not gonna that's gonna be relevant, right? It's gonna be a relevant combat trick. It's gonna be able to eat things sometimes. Although, of course, casting your tricks into open mana is never a good idea. So it's like the tertiary mode. I think with rolls roaming around, your creatures are gonna be a little bit bigger. I don't know. I'm not trying to talk this up as like a great main deck card or anything, but I think it's just a little more than meets the eye.
Yeah, I still have mixed feelings about a somewhat, like, it's not that aggressive in a card.
Right.
And so if you're playing a trick that's not that aggressive, I think you'd rather just have an adventure in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe that's me just being spoiled and assuming I can get tons of adventures every draft.
Oh, wait, week 1, right?
Week
1, you'll be able to have all the adventures. Maybe on week 4, this is going to be a card that makes it into your deck more often. Sorry, what was that grade?
C?
C? Yeah, I was going to give C too. C for Moment of Valor.
Okay.
What's up next?
Next is Protective Parents. 2 and a white for a 3/2. When it dies, create a young hero token attached to up to 1 creature you control.
Yeah, so effectively, it dies, you put a counter on something. Yeah, it's just a little... I mean, it's a little different than that, of course, but you can think of it that way. It's very filler looking to me.
Yeah, this one, I noticed, I don't know if you caught my other tweet, but I mentioned how white has a lot of commons that are just slightly worse versions of cards from other colors.
Yeah.
And like, there's a green version that basically does this, but it comes into play instead of dies, and it's just much better. Totally. So why are you picking these ones?
Yeah, I mean, really great art, but I think this card is. Are you gonna give it another D+ here? We got the train keep on rolling.
No, I'm gonna go even lower.
Oh, you're gonna get like D.
I think this one's pretty bad. I'm gonna give it a D.
I was gonna give it a D+, but yeah, this is not a particularly exciting card.
Okay.
Another one I think falls in the same camp. Savior of the Sleeping. 2 and a white for a 2/3 Vigilance, Human Knight. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Savior of the Sleeping.
Yeah, so if you just saw this as the first card in the text file, you'd look through the other white commons and expect to see some enchantments that go to their graveyard, but there's really not a lot of ways to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of black-white's thing. Like, that's at least as far as ease of doing it. There's, of course, the rolls that go to the graveyard, but it's just not going to happen that often. And these kind of creatures that kind of start understated and grow they always underperform. As you know, as far as like a 2-drop, sure, but like the 3 and the 4, the 5 mana ones, if they're understated, which a 2/3 vigilance is by the when they come down, tend to be quite poor. And you kind of think, oh, this scales with the game, it gets bigger. It never quite works out that way because your opponent, either find some way to finagle around this, or you just don't have the cards you need and you've just run a 3-mana 2/3 vigilance, or they're out there, them just casting more expensive cards outscales this. I'm just gonna give this a D2.
Yeah. The only way this grows on turn 4 is if you've like played an enchantment, played this card, and then bargained the enchantment, and at that point you've only got a 3/4, and you need to kind of do it all again to start to. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm on a D.
Yeah, I do think it's good to be. You have to be careful with these cards too, because I think a lot of times there are games where this is going to become a 5/6 or something, and it's a 5/6 vigilance. That's gigantic, and you can't race it, you can't deal with it in combat, and you go, oh, maybe this card's better than it looks. That's not going to be the normal case, really. You're going to lose to the card sometimes, but don't put it in your deck because of that, basically.
Yep.
What's up next?
Next is stockpiling celebrant. 2 and a white for a 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may return another target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, scry 2.
Okay. So, well, another card.
I have a gripe with this.
Okay.
A boomer gripe.
Yeah.
Before you start saying anything. I know every card these days is non-land, but there's like no reason for this to be non-land.
Yeah, I think so. You know what the reason is? Misclick equity or anti-equity, I suppose. I think it's so you can't accidentally pick up your land or something. I don't know.
I want to pick up my Crystal Grotto, Alex.
Right, get another scry, get the value, reset your Edgewell in, make another color. Yeah, they definitely limit the number of things you can do on cards these days. They make it a little bit more, decision light, let's say. This card's interesting though. I think
it's good. I think it's good.
Obviously the easy hit, the low hanging fruit is that the curve of the 2-drop we mentioned of the enchantment that comes in makes a 2/2. You pick that up with this. That's a really, really great start to your white decks. And there's just so many things that this is going to combo with, right? I'm sure we're going to point out as we go through the set a few things like, oh, this is pretty good to pick up. And I think it just does not take that much for this card to be good.
Yeah, there's so many ETBs in this set, and even the cards that don't have something that enters the battlefield, a lot of them are adventure creatures, so they functionally have an extra ability. So I think that this card's going to be fine early and fantastic in the late game.
Yes, absolutely. And there's going to be some decks where it's better in than others, like the quality of what it's almost like a regrowth or a raise that effect where the quality of those cards scales with how good your deck is. The more stuff you have to pick up that's good, the better this card gets. But I really like stockpiling Celebrant. I would give it a C+.
Yeah, I almost want to go higher.
Yeah? Huh, okay.
I think this is because from what we've seen in white, if any cards are getting you into white, I think this is one of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'm just slightly shy on getting it a B grade or somewhere in the B range, just because some of the time it's just gonna be a 3-mana 3/2, right? And that's sometimes you have to play your 3-mana 3/2. So I think just a little bit of a hit down from that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go B-, but
Cool.
you're totally reasonable there.
Next one we've got Besotted Knight. This is 3 and a white for a 3/3 vanilla, but of course it's an adventure creature. It's got Betroth the Beast. This is single white mana for a sorcery. Create a Royal Roll token, attach that to target creature you control. And I think this is the first time or the second time that we've seen this above or past the initial introduction. The Royal Roll is the enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has Ward 1.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of these, not quite a cycle, but almost a cycle of cards that adventure side makes a roll, and then the creature side is a creature. And just as I was kind of alluding to, the white one's pretty much the worst one of those.
Yeah, it's kind of. So I do like 1 mana do a thing. I do like me a 1 mana spell.
Yeah.
I don't like me a 4 mana 3/3 even on an adventure, right?
Really? Yeah.
If this is a 3/4 or you had a little bit of a upside ability, I'd be pretty into it. I think I'm lowish on this, and this is one I could see actually just being. You're thinking about this card more as a single mana way to trigger your celebration, or you get an aura, or get an enchantment, and then it's a 3/3 later. rather than the opposite. Like, actually, you know what? Isn't this, maybe this card is a little bit guiding voicey. I know it's a little bit different because you don't get the selection of your lessons to go get, but it reminds me a little bit of that card. And yeah, Mark's shaking his head. I'm not trying to say it's anywhere close to the power level, but just the way you would think about that card.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to start going off a tangent
No,
about
don't
guiding.
worry.
You have no options. It's always just a
Yes.
stupid 3/3. Like
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yeah, Mark's got his love letter to guiding voice like all written up, and he's like, I was just waiting for a moment to share this.
Let me tell you about the real way to draft red, white, and Strixhaven.
Yeah. So, what do you want to give Besotted Knight?
I've already written down my grade.
I'm gonna give it a C minus.
That's what I wrote.
Okay, cool, nice. Pass the test this time. What's up next?
Next is Rhyme for Reindeer. 3 and a white for a 3/4. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls.
That's an interesting one. So, your decks, we haven't really talked about this too much, and I don't have a great read on it just yet. I wonder if you do. How many enchantments do you think you're going to have in your deck between actual enchantments and rolls and... Because I would guess maybe about like 9 or something, 9 or 10.
Yeah, as you started to phrase that, the number I was coming to was 10, and then I was revising that in my head to 8. So yeah, I think 9 is about right.
Right, and we've seen this kind of ability before on When I Attack, and that has always been a pretty solid, as long as it's well statted, right? It's a 3/3. There was the Bullet Slinger from March of the Machine. That was a 3/3 with this ability with backup. 3/4 with, it's got some, you're always going to be able to untap and tap something. That said, the upside of you can tap multiple things sometimes, right? We just look at that Besotted Knight. You go 1 mana, make a roll, play another enchantment. I don't think I'm that hyped about the card, but it looks playable.
It's a very aggressive card because
Yes.
it doesn't really do anything on defense, and it's weird that it's like a blue-white card, but blue is not an aggressive color really, so it's doesn't really have an obvious home, but I don't think it's bad. Like
No.
I'm probably going to give it like a C minus.
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say. And it's definitely tempting to go like, oh, this is pretty good in your aggressive decks, and like all these like 4 mana tap things. That's where they go. But it's really important to keep in mind that your 4 mana cards in your aggro decks have to be awesome. Like they really have to be great. They can't just be like, oh, this is a pretty good top end card. They have to make up for the fact that you can't cast them on turn 2 and 3, and that's really, really what you're caring about. So I think this card, yeah, I think it reads a little bit better than it's actually going to play. So I think C minus for Rhyme for Reindeer. I do like
yeah, and C minus to me is a card you play about like 30-ish% of the time.
Yeah,
so
that's about right. Next up, we've got Toonvale Guide. So 3 and a white for a 2/3 flyer. Celebration. It's a fairy, by the way. It's a white fairy, which is kind of funny. Celebration, Toonvale Guide gets +1/+0 and has lifelink as long as the celebration thing was filled. Two non-lands entered. So really, really bad if you're not triggering celebration, right? Just like 4 mana 2/3 flyer. Whew, that's really rough. But
have you ever talked about a 4 mana 2/3 flyer before? I don't know.
I wonder. Maybe recently, maybe a certain black creature that people really, really liked in Lord of the Rings at the beginning. Yeah, the Mirkwood Bats, when I saw this card, I immediately was like, during the set review, we're going to liken it to Mirkwood Bats. And I think it's kind of similar, although you kind of, the problem with Mirkwood Bats is you fall behind in tempo, you're playing this thing that can't block, it doesn't attack all that well. This one makes up for it a little bit by having lifelink and being a 3-power creature sometimes.
Well, so the issue with this card is you want it to not have to be able to block, right? So you want it to be in an aggressive deck, and at that point the lifelink doesn't matter as much. So I'm pretty down on this card.
Yeah, I am as well, and I think that you put a roll on this that's kind of nice, make a 4-power flyer. I think this is just like you can imagine time's going to be good, but I think most of the time it's just going to be a little bit too understated. So I'm going to give this a D+ too. But a lot of D+ for these white cards. Did you want to join me at D+?
Yeah, like it could be higher. Maybe I'll just go C-,
Okay.
just to cover my bases a bit here.
Yeah. Everything converges to C, and you can never be really wrong. What is up next?
Next is Charmed Clothier. Clothier? I think it's Clothier.
Yeah.
4 and a white for a 3/3, another fairy. We got a bunch of white fairies here. I didn't notice this until you pointed it out, actually. 3/3 flying. When it enters the battlefield, create a royal roll token attached to a creature you control. So it's basically the same as Besotted Knight, but you can't split it up, but it has flying.
Yeah, so... This one is, I think, actually solid. I'm not...
I like this more than the knight.
Yes,
like flying
definitely.
is worth more than the ability to split the mana costs, in my opinion.
And again, it triggers celebration by itself. It gives you a little bit of a bonus if it dies right away, or like, you know, it's some insulation against just getting 2 mana, dealt 3 to something, or dealt 3 to this, and get completely blown out on tempo. You're gonna be like, all right, well, at least I got something for my trouble. So I think this is one of the better white cards we've seen so far, for sure.
What do you want to give it? I've written my grade down already.
I was still just gonna give it a C. You know, I think
I just have it a half grade higher than Besotted Knight. Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and just a quick note on the last toonvale guide. Some folks in chat are saying, "Oh, isn't the fact that it's a flyer make up for the fact that it's only 2 power? It's a 3/2 or a 3/3." That's one of my big talking points that I was talking about with Mirkwood Bats. It's like, not really. Flying on a small expensive creature doesn't add a lot to the card. Really, just downgrade that, right? Like, even in an aggro deck, your damage output for your mana on this card is not particularly high. Anyways, not to jump around. Uncommons up next. We've got our first one here, Cheeky House Mouse. So, single white mana for a 2/1. This is a Savannah Lion, white mana for a 2/1. Its adventure is Squeak By. Single white mana for a sorcery. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures power 3 or greater this turn.
Alex, you're very, very sneaky in how you phrase these things, because
Oh, did I say something wrong?
when we did Besotted Knight, you made the point of mentioning that it was a vanilla creature, as if it was like such a bad thing. You didn't say that the house mouse is a vanilla
Well,
creature.
it's a 1-mana 2/1. That's more passable than a 4-mana 3/3 by a lot. Hey, was 4 mana? Was Hell Giant ever constructed playable? I don't think so.
But it's still vanilla.
That's true. It is just vanilla. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. You're right. Should have read the flavor text.
I'm giving you a hard time for no reason.
I know. It's okay.
This card's
I
great.
Can take it. Yeah, I like this. It's the adventure is kind of funny because it's not that impactful, right? Like it doesn't actually, like, what situation are you casting this on your creature, and it's the ability is super, like the can't be blocked by power 3 or greater is super meaningful. You're putting it on like a 1/1. I guess no, that's not true, because your attacks.
Yeah,
just,
isn't the ability always going to be really good?
yeah, no. I'm just thinking about this a bit wrong. You're right. It's gonna have more applications because it's gonna enable attacks. It's gonna make it so that they're certain creatures can't trade when they would want to put a certain creature in front of it. So yeah, I am wrong about that. It's not too low impact. Yeah.
Yeah, the only downside is, as you said, because it's a single target. If they kill your creature in response, you've lost your Savannah Lions.
Yeah. No, this is good. I really like Cheeky House now. So what do you want to give it?
A B.
Ooh, I was gonna go B-, but B's pretty high. I don't know. This one I might push back on a little bit.
Okay, yeah. I'll join you with B-.
Okay, cool. What's up next?
Next, we have a reprint. It is Glass Casket, 1 and a white for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until Glass Casket leaves.
Yeah, this is just, tried and true card. Generally, his effects are solid. Of course, it doesn't get the gigantic things, but that's okay. It's only 2 mana. It's gonna add, it's an artifact for some things that might care about the. You're not gonna want to sack your Glass Casket unless you have a token. So yeah, just solid removal spell. I'd give it a B.
Sure. Yeah, I can join you there.
Great. What's next?
Next is Cursed Courtier, 2 and a white for a 3/3 lifelink. So amazing, but it enters the battlefield with a cursed roll token attached to it, meaning that it is a 1/1.
Okay, so of course this is where the rules knowledge comes in. It's like, how are you getting rid of this enchanted creature is a 1/1, the cursed roll token? You put another roll on it. That's the joke here for the most part, right? You're like,
or you bargain it.
Or you bargain it away. Yeah, there's 2 jokes here, right? And that's cool, right? I think this card's gonna be pretty good. You're gonna put this in your deck, and I think it'd be very difficult for your deck not to have some amount of one of those things, either bargaining or rolls. Like, I think you're not gonna have a white deck where it's just like, wow, this is just staying a 1/1.
Yeah, and it triggers celebration as well.
Yeah. Cool.
What do you want to give it before I say anything else? I'm
Yeah,
gonna
good
do this again
question.
to you.
Because this still is, I do still want to caution that it's still a card that sometimes you're not going to have the thing that combos with that, right? And its upside of when you do combo with it is strong but not busted. So I'm going to be tempered a little bit and just give it a C plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little lower on it.
Okay.
So when I saw this card, I was like, "Oh, this is so cute! You know, it's so interesting. They've really knocked it out of the park design-wise." Part of the reason I want to give it lower is because it's got 1 toughness and it is susceptible to our 5 ping effects and can't really block the turn it comes into play. But I think I would have really liked to see this card be printed as a 3/4.
Like a real payoff. You're like, yeah, no,
Yeah, like actually paying you off for getting, because imagine you get a roll on this and then you make it into a 4/4 with whatever ward 1 or whatever it is. And you're like, wow, I've really done it. It's not that much better than just having a regular 3/3 and throwing a roll onto that creature.
Right. Yeah, that's a fair point. Well,
And you've had to jump through hoops to get like a card that's just reasonably statted.
right. So I guess something that maybe this is probably obvious if you're looking at the card, but maybe not as much as if you're listening. But it is going to be a 4/4 lifelink, right? When you do the thing.
Yeah, but a regular 3/3 would be a 4/4 as well, and it can also block as a 3/3. Like I'm saying, it's not that much better than just if you had a Centaur Courser. Centaur Courser will sometimes be better than this.
Yeah, I agree on that. I do think that the lifelink here is a really big deal. I know you know that it's not like a. I think I might just think this is the payoff when you actually do the thing is I think I'm rating it slightly higher. So I'm gonna stick with my C plus. What did you want to give it?
I'm gonna go C minus.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Chat's saying that we might be underrating how many bargain enablers there are. I don't think we've done that. I think we've appropriately rated it. I think that it's not the one thing I want to caution. It's not that it's impossible to get or hard even, or it might be somewhat trivial to get enough bargain enablers in your deck. You're not going to draw them in that order all the time. That's what we're cautioning against here. Sometimes you are going to draw your courtier in a deck with 6, 7, 8, 9 enablers, but you have it in your opening hand and you don't draw those enablers, right? So that's what we're cautioning about, not the deck building requirement.
Yeah, like if you have this, I mean, we're going to see a red shock with bargain later. And if you have this in your hand on the shock, are you going to like not cast your shock on turn 1 and 2?
Right. Of course. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to. Oh man, this is such an interesting one. Discerning financier. All these. I don't know if you listened to Lords of Limited this week, but Ben wanted to pronounce all these ER cards as A, like French, like financier and clothier, and Ethan was like, no, it's just English, and I was getting tripped up with the same thing. Anyways, discerning financier here. 2 and a white for a 2/3 uncommon human noble. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, create a treasure token. It also has an ability, 2 and a white, choose another player. That player gains control of target treasure you control. You draw a card.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of land tax, which is interesting because, spoiler alert, there's also actual land tax in this set.
Right.
But I wish this card like didn't have that last ability and instead just had like a little more stats, like a 2/4 or something.
Yeah, this is an interesting card because it's a rare example of a card that is good on the draw, right? A card that you actually like kind of want to be on the draw for, because you won't get the treasure on turn 3 if you're not, and it's not really like you're getting caught up. It's not like you're like, oh, I'm getting an insurmountable advantage in the opponent. No, you're just meeting them to where they are in lands. But it is just rare that you see that generally.
But you can't really hold this and play it on turn 4 and just like not play your land, right? So you're going to play this on turn 3 on curve, and then your opponent's actually going to have the choice if they want to play a land or not.
Oh, sure. I think most opponents will not hold their land. I could be wrong about that. Maybe this plays out a bit differently than I assume, but
how many times have you played against land tax there, Alex?
Yeah, I gotta say I let them have their land tax lands more often than I think a lot of players. So maybe that's influencing me a little bit here. What do you make of that last ability?
It's nice. Like I'm not gonna write home about it. Mm-hmm. It's something to do, but I think you're gonna find other ways to use your treasures in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think so too. In the same vein of, like you were saying, like sacrificing something isn't just free. Even if you have cards that make additional material, giving away your treasure isn't just free, especially at the cost of 3 mana, right? That's a big thing. And you can't do some, weird thing where you like sack the treasure in response. Obviously, that would just be broken. So I don't know. I don't love this card.
Wait, can you? Because you choose a target. Oh no, it's choose another player, not a target player. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
For a second, I reread it. I thought there was 2 targets, but there's not.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not that high on this card.
No, I think I'm gonna give this a C-, maybe even lower. I'm not sure. This is one that we don't have a lot of analogs to, right? This is a pretty new effect. Like we haven't really seen this too much before. I believe, if I'm to put my designer hat on, this is a commander tool for the folks that are playing white and want some mana advantage and card draw. But it could be, could pan out unlimited too. I'm gonna start on C-, but I can come up on it.
I'll go D+.
Cool.
Yeah, next we're on Eerie Interference. 2 and a white for an instant. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control this turn by creatures. Oh, I thought I was misreading that, but no. Yes.
Yeah, so it doesn't stop burn spells. So this is safe passage for the boomers out there. Mark, have you played with safe passage? Not just to instantly call you a boomer after I said that, but have you?
Yes, I have played with safe passage. Yeah, the one-sided fogs.
Yeah, what's your read on that kind of effect?
I remember safe passage being decent.
Yeah.
But not amazing. And the fact that we've had so much power creep now means this is probably pretty bad these days.
Yeah, I would think so too. Because the thing is, when you imagine the situation where they attack into you, and you double block a bunch of spots, and you get this giant blowout, and it's just not going to happen very often because, number one, creatures attack into other creatures less frequently than you might picture if you're just like don't have a snapshot of a game. You're imagining what this could do, and it's just like your opponents just don't attack their 3 creatures into your 3 creatures that often. And if you don't have creatures, it's just an expensive fog. And even on attacks, it's not that good because you're never going to win a combat. You're going to be trading, if they go 3-3 and 3-3, you win that combat there. But even if you win one combat, it's not worth it for a 3-mana combat trick, right? So I think this is, I'm going to give this an F.
Yeah, if your opponents have good attacks, this isn't doing anything to change that really. And if your opponents have bad attacks, they're not attacking, so it doesn't do anything.
There was a version of this from Ikoria, and I don't think it prevented damage to you. And we kind of had the same conversation of, this might be good. It was not good. So I'm going to go low on this one. Next up, we've got Gallant Pie Wielder. 2 and a white. Uncommon, again. First strike, 2-3. 3 mana, 2-3 first strike. Celebration ability, it gets double strike, though.
Yeah, I like this thing.
Yeah, this is nice. So they could have made this a 2 mana 2-2. 3 mana 2-2 first strike, and it wouldn't be too bad. But that third point of toughness is real nice. Not only does it block a little bit better, but it's going to mean that it attacks quite a bit better, right? Like 2-3 double strike is really difficult to block, not even considering the potential for the opponent to have a trick or a removal spell. It's going to be it's a good blocker and a good attacker.
Yeah, now we're cooking.
Yeah, but I'm sure, yeah. Cooking many pies, and it looks like a nice roast over there too. Also plays really well with rolls, right? Just like any buffs you can have. Yeah, I like this as a nice aggro card. Not even that bad of like a mid-range card too, right? You just put this in your mid-range deck and blocks all day, attacks pretty well. I like.
Yeah, they don't print a lot of first strike anymore because a lot of them only have first strike on attackers because it can make combat such a nightmare for opponents, and it's just gonna be good.
Yeah, your opponent has just like a bunch of X2s, and it's just like, I just can't attack you, right? Like it stabilizes when it comes down, and then it cracks back for a bunch. I want to give this a B-.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there.
Great, let's do that. Next up, we've got Knight of Droves. So this is a 3 mana, 2 and a white, 1/3. And it says, whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying.
This card's bad, right?
I think so, yeah. So the initial thing, I'm like, okay, we got 3 mana, 1/3. All right, that's bad. We do not like that. Even if it has good abilities, those abilities have to really make up for the fact that you're playing a 3 mana, 1/3. And this is not. It echoes Wingmantle Chaplain, but so much worse. So it's just like infinitely worse in the way that this plays out. Right? You don't get that giant boost of birds. You have to have this finicky stuff going on. if you make 1 token off of this, it's still not great. A 3-mana 1/3 come with a 1/1 friend. That's a playable card. We would play that fine. But that's your payoff.
You need to get multiple triggers, which means you're not blocking with it or not attacking with it for multiple turns. So is this just enough?
I am imagining a spot where the black-white decks are slow enough and gum up the board enough where this is like a reliable way to close out the game if you've got enough of the stuff going on, and maybe you can recur it. And like I'm talking a really long game where you're just playing to attrition and you're just playing to, gum up the board and you just need some way to reliably win. I think this could play a role there. I don't think it's a generically good card though, so I'm gonna start like D-. It's kind of like a insulting grade, worse than F almost, right? So
yeah.
I don't know.
You had hope,
right? Yeah. There's a chance, right? I'm gonna reserve final judgment again until we play it, but we'll start low on it.
Okay, sure. I'll join you with D- then.
Yeah, and some folks are asking, is there Knight synergies in this set? I don't think so, and if it is, it's like a one-off thing or something. Ooh, this is a cool one. What's up next?
Next is The Princess Takes Flight. This is our first Saga of the set. 2 and a white. Chapter 1, exile up to 1 target creature. Chapter 2, target creature you control gets +2/+2 in flying. And then Chapter 3, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Oh no, that's bad. We don't want that. That's exactly not what we want to do to that creature that we just exiled. So Mark, what's the joke here?
The joke is you sacrifice it.
You sacrifice the Princess Takes Flight. Because this isn't like an Oblivion Ring style effect. This leaving the battlefield, this Saga leaving the battlefield, isn't what brings the creature back, right? It's the 3rd chapter. So that never triggers. That's great. That's cool. And that middle ability, +2/+2 in flying, like, you're just getting a free, aggressive, combat trick, basically. Okay, nice little upside. You're mostly just hoping to use this as a removal spell, but that middle ability, it's not nothing. And, like, even when you... Here's one thing that is kind of interesting with this card. Obviously, you want to put it in a deck that you can sacrifice this, because it's not going to be a card you're just like, oh, I'm just happy to put this in my deck. But unlike some of the other synergistic cards, where I was kind of warning... Yes, your deck could be doing this thing, but when you don't draw the cards together in the right order, it's still awkward. I think this one's not that bad when you don't draw the things in the right order. Like, if you have to cast this card, it's not a blank. Getting rid of their creature for 2 turns, that's something. Getting something flying, that's something. Maybe it's a stalled out board state, you blank one of your value creatures. I think the ceiling in this card is high, and I'm not thrilled about the floor. Like I say, you're not just going to put this in your deck if you have no bargain things. I think with like 4 or 5 bargain things though, or goes up from that, I think this card's really good.
It also works with the thing that returns a permanent you control to your hand.
Which one? Oh, the creature, right? The
3/2 that bounces one of your permanents.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. I'm gonna give this a B. Do you want to join me there, or
a B? Ooh, only I think you have to be pretty aggressive to give it a B, because then you need it to still be good if you're not sacrificing.
Sure,
because there's a very small window to sacrifice it. It's either the turn you play it or the next turn.
Right. Yes. It's 2 turns, not a 3-turn window. Unless no, that won't work. Yeah.
So I was gonna go C+.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think so when you say C+. I think we should probably give a synergy grade to this, right? If we're going to give like a little bit of a caveat there. And
sure. So synergy B- then.
Yeah, okay, let's split the difference. Great. Sounds good to me. Princess Takes Flight,
Great.
Synergy B-. Next up we got Solitary Sanctuary, another kind of build around card. 2 and a white for an enchantment. And it says, when it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls, you put a stun counter on it. And whenever you tap an untapped creature an opponent controls, play a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control.
Yeah, so this is a blue-white card, pretty clearly.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to play it in any deck other than blue-white.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not terrible.
Yeah.
It's also not, like, amazing. It's not like, oh, I really did it.
Not terrible is how I would describe it, too. So one thing that I am kind of interested in is the fact that this puts counters on cards, and there's not a ton of +1/+1 counters flying around because a lot of that design space is taken up by rules. So we've seen a few cards that we were like, oh man, this is really good with a roll on it. But of course, that doesn't scale up infinitely because rolls don't scale on the same creature. Putting a counter on your lifelink or on your double striker that's something you don't get anywhere else in this set. I'm not trying to say I love this card, but just a little bit of a thinking point there. Imagine you've got 7-8 ways to trigger this in your deck, and I always use that number for you've got enough stuff to do the thing, right? Trigger it once or twice. If you trigger this twice, I think it's a solid card. But I think below
and
it
can threaten like if you have like the Hithlane knots or whatever, you can also grow your thing in mid combat. Like it's
I think that this deck, along with kind of the fairy-ish deck in blue black, is they're decks that the great versions of the deck when you have all of the pieces are going to be pretty good, but they're not going to come together that often. That's kind of my read on blue white and blue black fairies.
What do you want to give this then?
It's a tough question, eh? I'm gonna say build around C+. Let's go there. It's just the starting point. It's a bit of a cop out, but I gotta start somewhere.
Okay, I was just gonna go C. So it's kind of similar.
Cool. Next up, we've got Stroke of Midnight. This is 2 and a white for an instant. Destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 1/1 white human soldier token. Oh, sorry, creature token. Human creature token. Yeah, not a soldier.
Not a soldier, no.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Raven form.
Instant speed Raven form, though.
Yeah, so you can give your opponent's bargain an instant celebration of instant speed. Or bargain.
Yeah, more bargain fire. Yeah, so they've pushed this, right? Usually these are, the previous version of this was Generous Gift. They got a 3/3. A 1/1's a lot less than a 3/3, but it's still something, right? I think that's just such a, if you're looking at this card and you're like, oh man, that's like, I know this is not a great effect, or maybe you aren't as accustomed to these effects being not good, and you're imagining, hey, if I upgrade their 5/5 or downgrade their 5/5 to a 1/1, but the thing is, so many times there's not a 5/5. Your opponent's attacking with a 2/2 or a 3/3, and it's just like, well, I'm not really downgrading their card that much. If this always hit, if Magic was a game like Hearthstone, where you always hit your mana on turn 7, you don't have to have turn 7, meaning people are going to play expensive cards more often, I'd be a little more into that. But how much of the time is your opponent going to cast something that you feel like it's a meaningful downgrade? Not actually that much for your full card.
So, like, C minus?
I love that. Just like, like Alex goes in this giant diatribe, and Mark's like, yeah, C minus.
I agree with everything you said, so nothing more to add.
I was going to give it a little bit lower, actually. I was going to go D+, but...
D+?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next up, we've got Dutiful Griffin. So this is 3 white for a 4/4 flyer. It's got the ability 2 and a white, sacrifice 2 enchantments, return Dutiful Griffin from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, 4/4 flyer for 5 is not what it used to be, but it's still a threat.
Yeah, I guess. The format 4/4 flyer, I'm not excited about. The ability probably, it's gonna be like a once per game thing, and probably only gonna be like once every third game or something like that, right? Unless you're just like straight up black-white and you're really deep on the theme. But even then, I think my statement is mostly true.
Yeah, I don't think it's great.
Yeah.
I probably like D+, a card I'm going to play a couple times this format.
Yep. Yeah. And this is another kind of card where you like imagine, it's like, oh, it's 5 mana 4/4 flyer. That's like pretty good. I'm attacking for 4. It blocks okay. But it doesn't block that well. Like, this is another kind of card you don't really want to block with if you can help it. And it, it's a good attacker if you untap and it survives and you're not under pressure. But I think it just is these kind of cards, big flyers like this that are not huge, but fine, are just generally overrated these days. So I'm actually going to give this a pretty low grade. I'm going to go C minus. Maybe C. Maybe C minus is a little bit harsh potentially. I think just C for Dutiful Griffin.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're higher on it than I am, and that's fine.
Yeah. Sorry, what did you give it? I maybe even didn't hear your grade.
I said D+.
Oh, cool. Maybe I like my C minus then. Now that I heard your grade. Yeah, it's going to be a card I think most people are going to be higher on than we are in general. So, yeah.